Shaw 360, and this is my second live stream of this exact same day. And I'm doing this live stream because I had this idea when I was in the car earlier today, and I'm like, you really need to do that. But then I showed up to my house and I had this huge box sitting in front of my front door. And I'm like, you know what? Let's go ahead and table this until after we've done the haul. But then I'm like, no, if you wait too long to do this, you're going to forget what you wanted to talk about. And then there you will be, another lost conversation. So I'm like, okay, let's do the haul first because the haul is fun. Then we will follow it up with the, but is it unpopular? So for a while there, everyone and their freaking grandmother were doing my unpopular opinion. And the truth of the matter is, the opinions weren't unpopular, they were just rude. And people are like, oh, it's an unpopular opinion because it's not nice. Well, yeah, saying things that are not nice is rather unpopular. So I guess in the most traditional sense of the meaning of that phrase, you might be right. But the truth is, they were opinions that a lot of people have had about a lot of different things. And so you're not saying anything special. It just is what it is. A real unpopular opinion is that Gravity should have been the title track instead of Don't Mess Up My Tempo. Take that. But this, on the other hand, I believe might actually be some unpopular opinions because I feel like I'm the only person that feels this way about this stuff. And so by me saying that, you know, feel free to flame me in the comments. I don't care. But it's just been on my mind, and so I thought I'd talk about it. So my first unpopular opinion that I would like to put out there right now, I've already put it into the atmosphere anyway, but I'm just going to re-put it out there. I don't think that a lot of the boy groups debuting now have anything to differentiate themselves from one another. And I blame a lot of that on makeup. That's the unpopular part of this. So I was trying to figure out why it is that I'm having such a hard time identifying boys in groups. Like back in second gen, I knew a lot of members of a lot of groups by name. And I knew them by name and also by face. So I could look at a group and be like, okay, this is that one, that's that one, this is this one, and that was that one. Now I have a really hard time doing that. Part of it is because there are like 1,000 members in every single group that's out there. But another big part of it, what I've recognized very recently, is the makeup. The makeup that they do for K-pop guys nowadays makes them almost indecipherable to me. Like, unless somebody has a really big nose, or they have really distinct eyes, or they've got, you know, something going on with their lips that's a little bit odd, or maybe like they're super duper tall and like gangly limbed. Outside of that, a lot of the K-pop boys look very much the same to me. And when they're naked faced, I feel like they look very different. But when they have on makeup, I don't recognize these boys. And somebody on my timeline did a tweet about some member of NCT. I cannot remember the name of who it was. And they showed 3 different pictures of this individual. I did not recognize him in a single picture. Like, every picture looked like an absolutely different person. They did not look like they were the same person. And I've been looking at, like, because I've got that K Collect app on my phone, and I can see like who people are collecting. Some people have been like posting like, these are the photo cards I'm missing, and they've been posting them on their K Collect, which is incredibly smart, by the way. Like, I didn't even think about using it in that way, but like, if you're using it to find photo cards and get people to know that you're finding photo cards, or you need to find them, like, just put up like, these are the missing ones that I'm looking for. Brilliant, right? Anywho's, somebody was putting up like, these are the photo cards I'm missing from this person, and from album to album to album, this person looked incredibly different. And I mean, maybe this is just me talking as an old school K-pop girl, but I don't have a problem with idols in makeup. Never have had a problem with it. In fact, if you look back at like early Super Junior and some of them like super early second gen groups, the makeup was even heavier back then. Like, look at the 2 p.m. Heartbeat video. Look at the makeups in that video. The makeup has been worse. But it's more like, I feel like when makeup artists go backstage with K-pop idols now, they have like a cartoon that they drew, and they just apply that cartoon to everyone's face in the group with no concern about contouring to emphasize that person's features or trying to put on makeup that highlights one thing, maybe diminishes something that's a little bit weaker on their face. No, they just literally get in the room and say, we're all doing an orange lip with a peaky cheek, and we're also doing a small smoky eye. And that's what everyone today is getting. And I hate that. I really hate that. Like, one of the parts that really bugs me more than anything is that it seems like everybody has the exact same eyebrow shape. What the fuck is that about? Everybody's got the same straight eyebrow. Could you imagine what K-pop would be like if Top had debuted in today's K-pop and he couldn't have arched eyebrows? Wouldn't that be bizarre? So that is like a super unpopular opinion because I've not heard anybody talk about makeup recently. I feel like I am the only one who's concerned about the way the makeup looks, but I think the makeup is completely uninspired lately. I feel like there's not enough care being done. Hey, Crystal, not enough care being done in putting out really good makeup. And yeah, I think that they should do a little bit more with that. Another really unpopular opinion. People always act like if you are a fan of boy groups that you have to hate girl groups, and that you hate girl groups because you hate girls and you only like guys. I don't think that's true. Here's my unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people hate girl groups because girl groups have annoying voices. Let me expand on that. So, a lot of K-pop, as you all should well know, is very influenced by the Johnny system and the AKB system, and a lot of what they were doing in Japan in J-pop. And the K-pop companies that make a lot of money with girl groups are marketing specifically to uncle fans. And let me tell you what kind of voice uncle fans are looking for. They're looking for oppa, to hear a girl talking like this, and I'm so young and so precious, and oh, I'm just a button. And that voice, coming from a Western musical background to try to slide into, takes a lot of getting used to. It is not what we're typically hearing in Western music. A lot of female singers in Western music, especially like Adele, Whitney Houston, they're known for having a richer style of voice. And so if you like a boy group, it's a lot easier to like boy groups and like get used to hearing the Korean, because their vocal tone is very much the same kind of vocal tone you hear in like the Chris Browns and the Jacqueeses of the world, if you will. It's like kind of a higher male voice, but not a super high male voice. It's easier to get into. Whereas when you hear, Orange Caramel, like when you hear that, it's really hard to get used to that. So a lot of people who are only into boy groups, they don't hate girls, they just can't get used to the pitch. And no one ever says that. Everybody acts like it's a sexism trip. It doesn't have shit to do with sexism. It took me a while to get into a lot of girl groups. And truth be told, I'm not into a lot of the newer girl groups because their voices are so very, very high. And that's not for me. But like, if you look at who my favorite girl groups have been over the years, not extremely high voices. 2NE1, Sistar, Red Velvet, not extremely high voices. And usually my favorite members of these groups have much richer vocal tones. So yes, it's an unpopular opinion to say people who don't like girl groups aren't girl haters. They just don't like that tone. There are people that are like that. There are some girls that are like, I just like boys and girls are trash and whatever else. And that's fine. That's fine. You're dumb and it is what it is. We all understand an ignorant queen. But I'm talking about like people that I know, like my own personal experience. It took me a hot second to get into a lot of girl groups because their voices were too high. And that's really what kept me away from Girls' Generation for a really long time. Genie was one of the only Girls' Generation songs I could like really pin my hopes on early on, because Genie sounded like it was sung with a real voice. Like the very beginning of Genie is a lot deeper than you're used to hearing. So like when you first hear Genie, it comes on, When you hear that part, you're like, hey, what are we talking about here? Instead of like the beginning of G, which is like, my sunshine. You can see where it would take a little getting used to one over the other. So yeah, I stand by that statement completely. Another thing that is unpopular, and maybe a lot of people don't want to hear this, but I'm just going to go with this. When it comes to our faves, a lot of us believe that we like our faves because our faves are legitimately the best. And you're not wrong for you. But the truth is, all of our faves have things they could be working on. And being a stan just makes us absolutely unable to see those things, or if we do see them, we talked about them in hushed rooms in low tones, hoping that no one could overhear us because we don't want to be seen as a bad fan. But we all know that there's like a secret thing that nobody in the fandom talks about that's like really a detriment for that particular person, but we just kind of like let it slide because it doesn't fit the narrative of my favorite is the best. And I'll just talk about mine real quick because I mean, since I'm out here putting myself in harm's way, let's do this. Minho's rap has ruined many a SHINee song. Please don't hate me. I'm still Charlotte 360. Minho's rap has ruined many a SHINee song. Early on. In the most recent years, he's found that really good medium to make these things work. But early on, Dibby Dibby this, my name is Minho. And like, Shawas have really tried very hard to act like, oh, it's just cute and it's a fandom thing and we like that. But quiet as it's kept, no. And for me, another thing, quiet as it's kept, for many, many years, Key was the superior rapper in SHINee. Real talk. But yeah, we don't like to talk about those things. We don't like to talk about them. But I feel like maybe we should. Maybe it makes us seem more human when we can admit that there's things that our faves could be working on. And so that's why I'm starting with mine. But yeah, I just, tis what tis. Tis what tis, Yeah. So there you go for that one. Another thing that is an unpopular opinion for me, just for me, I think that other people are fine, but like just for me, I think that K-pop merchandising has gotten ridiculous. I feel like K-pop merchandising has gotten to a point where we really need to tell people, can you please slow the fuck down and hold the fuck up? Luna's got capes. Capes, y'all. Capes. What do I, as a grown-up, look like standing outside a concert, waving a scepter and wearing a cape? I know that we're all trying to look for something different and new. I know that we all want something that we haven't seen before. SHINee's got some ridiculous stuff as well. They had some like water spray fan thing that I was like, this was dumb. I own it, but this was dumb. But Luna's got capes. When is enough enough? When are we going to start telling people, I don't need all this? I mean, SHINee's had candles, they've had perfume, they've had lotions, they have a milk cup that a bunch of people bought recently, and it's like, it's a glass that's shaped like a milk carton that comes with a straw that people have been trying to figure out how to ship to them, and I get it. We all want something different. But I just showing up to a concert with a cape and a scepter, I look insane. Especially if I'm wearing my regular clothes. It'd be different if I show up to the concert and I've got on like my princess dress and my big hair and my beautiful sparkling heels plus my cape and my scepter. Then maybe people will feel like, okay, well, this person is obviously showing up for like a Comic-Con or a cosplay event, or maybe this is the Sailor Moon convention and that is the reason why she's dressed like this. But if I show up in my fucking overalls wearing a cape and a scepter, they're going to call the police on me thinking that they need to hold me on a 5150. So I'm just saying, I feel like we're going too far with the merchandising here. Maybe we need to really think about, like, do we have to slap our name on everything? Maybe we should try to be a little bit more specific about the things we're doing for. Also because, like, you know, from a money standpoint, I can't imagine that everything y'all are selling is totally making bank. It cannot be. It cannot be. Another super unpopular opinion. This one is a bad one. This is the one that I think a lot of you are like, that's really a crap opinion, and I can't believe you'd say that. I feel like it's okay to give up on a group after 3 albums. Don't shoot me yet. Okay, so groups debut. Your first album that you debut with, you don't kind of really know where you stand. You need a little help getting things together. You have the best of intentions, but the material wasn't really written for you, right? So cool. We need to regroup on here. Second album comes out. You're a little bit more comfortable on stage. You're a little bit more comfortable in your concept. You've kind of figured out what you want to do, right? But there's still maybe one more thing that's off. There's still maybe one more talent that has yet to be discovered. Then you get to that third album. By then, you have got to have this thing down. If you don't have this thing down, go away. Like, go away. And it could either be that the group needs to stop, or it could be that you as a fan are like, I gave it 3 tries, I am out. But 3 albums is enough. 3 albums is enough. And 3 albums is enough for, like, a casual fan to be like, you know, I tried, and I tried, and I tried. I'm done. That's enough. For groups that aren't making it, for groups that, like, they are struggling with the money, if that third album doesn't hit, let it go, let it go. Why waste any more of our money? Let it go, let it go. You'll never pay back the record company. Let it go, let it go. You're never going to make that money back. You're just pushing yourself into debt. So why are we continuing to do this? Now, I understand not every group hits on that third album. Like, a great example to me of a group that, like, the more albums they released, the stronger they got would be SF9. SF9 is a group I could not care less about when they debuted. And I did not get into them. I'm still not really into them like that. But their last comeback song is a hit. Like, straight up, it is a hit. It may not be doing the numbers that, like, Blackpink and some of these others are doing, but, like, its first few day view count numbers were stronger than Red Velvet. Like, they're really, really good. And it's a group that, like, it has been, like, they've been quietly growing their presence. But I didn't see it for them the first 3 releases. I absolutely did not. And I think that, you know, it's okay that I bowed out early on. But I think a lot of these people, like, from these really small companies that are struggling, and people keep saying, like, hey, just give them more time. And if you give them a couple of years, they're going to do really well. And you just need to invest in them and watch them grow. And it's just like, that's all well and good that you're saying that, sis. And I admire you for wanting to give people a second chance. But somebody's got to keep these lights on. Somebody's got to book these music video shooting areas. It's just not happening. Like, a group that I would have given up on if I was a CEO, I would have never allowed Boyfriend to last as long as they did. Like, I would have been that CEO who's like, okay, time to go ahead and break things up. Maybe you need to go back to school. Maybe you need to consider a career at the behind the scenes. But yeah, I would have easily given up on Boyfriend very soon in the game. Really soon in the game. And so, you know, that's why I feel like 3 is enough. 3 is enough. And, like, trying to get into a group. Again, if I hear that first album, it's not my thing, maybe just, we got off to a rocky start. The second album, still not my thing, but I see some potential here. It's okay. That third album, I just don't get it. I just keep trying to force myself to like it, but it's not really happening. I'm allowed to give up at that I'm allowed to give up at that point. And to be quite fair, this conversation is actually happening because of Twice. That is actually where this is happening. So, I bought Twice's first 2 releases, I think. And I bought the very first release from them, and I liked it okay. I didn't like the B-sides, but like Ooh Ah is a great song. Then I bought the next release with Cheer Up. Cheer Up is cool. I really like TT. I think TT is just, again, it's their best song. I've said that before. It's their best song. But then Signal came out. And Signal, I actually thought Signal wasn't the next one that came. Signal came out after. It was TT, and then it was the song that I don't like. Then it was Signal. But like, I could feel myself falling off of Twice. And I couldn't keep justifying at that time buying Twice for title tracks that I liked and B-sides I didn't. Knock Knock, thank you. So it was like, it was TT, then it was Knock Knock, then it was Signal, then it was something else that I really didn't give a damn about. And I just couldn't keep buying Twice. I couldn't keep paying attention Twice at that point. What made me come back to Twice was Feel Special. Honestly, like, real talk, Fancy was a cool song. I thought Fancy was a really good song. But I just did not see it for Twice with Fancy the way I saw it for Feel Special. There's something, I don't know who wrote Feel Special. I should probably look it up, but there's something about Feel Special that feels like, I don't know how to describe it. There's something about Feel Special that feels special. And it feels warm. I guess that's what it is. Feel Special feels warm. And it really like made me look at them again. And I've gone back and I've appreciated things. But I'm not mad at myself for not paying attention during the time that I was off Twice. I don't feel guilty for the fact that I wasn't staying in there and trying to make myself like them. But yeah, Fancy, I thought Fancy was a really cute song. Happy for them. Good for you. Dance the Night Away, like I said, one of my favorite title track, but it was a really pretty video. Good for you. But Feel Special, I don't know how to do it. Feel Special is just special, which is the reason why I can never hate JYP. JYP, quiet as it's kept, is one of the greatest K-pop songwriters of all time. No one says enough. Maybe that's another unpopular opinion I need to share with the team. JYP is one of the greatest K-pop songwriters of all time. JYP has written some absolute masterpieces, and people never talk about it because we are so focused on like how JYP as a label treats their groups and everything else. But JYP, on a songwriting and production tip, is a fucking genius. And he is the most talented CEO of any of the big 3. And I put that on everything. Isuman is not as talented as JYP. YG is not as talented as JYP. It is absolutely the fact that JYP is a brilliant person. And his mind, his musical mind, is unmatched. Unmatched. The only person whose musical mind can touch him in terms of like currently writing music for K-pop right now, maybe Zico is getting there, but even Zico doesn't know a pop hook the way that JYP does. Like, JYP is not just a good songwriter, like, oh, that's a nice sounding song. JYP's mind is like, I know exactly what part of this song is going to addict the public. And he does that consistently and has been doing that consistently for going on 40 years. Or, well, it's like he's already 30 years in the game. So yeah, about to be 40 years. That is how long JYP has been writing the hits. And we just don't give him enough credit for that. And we really should, because it is the reason why people continue to sign to JYP. Honestly, like, people sign to JYP because, of course, you have the Wonder Girls and Miss A and GOT7 and 2PM and Twice. So those are all great reasons. Those are really all great reasons. But people who are actual musicians, like people who really pay attention to music, they know that JYP is an artist, and they want to be in the same building as an artist like JYP. And I think that he deserves credit for that. And he doesn't get enough of it. As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't get enough of it. I've talked about how I personally really, really like JYP. I really, really do. Okay, so Ian says, I love Fancy and Feel Special, but more and more is it's okay. He ain't writing those hits for JYP. Well, or for GOT7. He's not writing the hits for GOT7 because GOT7 is writing their own stuff for the most part. So, it is what it is. But yeah, I love that man. I really do. He has a comeback coming out soon. I cannot wait. More unpopular opinions said and unsaid. Somebody asked me, and I'm going to read this comment because I thought it was very important, because I'm not the kind to shy away from controversy. Question. Really Bad Boy, Zimzalabim, and Oompa Oompa 2. Did Psycho just make it up to you? You damn fucking right. You damn fucking right. Mason and I had this conversation, actually. It was almost time to give up on Red Velvet. Real talk. It was almost time to hang it up on Red Velvet. Zimzalabim is just not it. And I don't care how many people talk about how she's speaking in Simslish or any of that crap. I don't care. Zimzalabim, not the one. Oompa Oompa, not the one. Production-wise, weak. The B-sides on both of those projects, weak. Except for Eyes Closed, Hands Closed. That's not what it's called, but it's something similar to that. Sumin wrote that, and she's a fucking genius. Really Bad Boy has some interesting B-sides. I think So Good and Taste are on Really Bad Boy, and those are both really good songs. But Zimzalabim and Oompa Oompa, I was like, listen, if the last day of the Reva Festival doesn't work, I'm gonna have to get the fuck up out of here, because I just can't keep wasting money on this shit. Thank God Psycho is Psycho. Thank you. Thank God that Psycho is Psycho. Because Psycho is so good. Like, just from the very beginning of Psycho, and the way it sounds like an Enya song, like, it restored my faith in that group. It gave them a second life for me, and I'm even more pleased that Monster is actually a decent mini. I wish that Naughty had been the title track, but nobody wants to talk about that, whatever. But yeah, Red Velvet was this close to dropping off of everyone's faves list. Let's keep it completely a buck. Let's keep it two Virgils. There's only so long you can go before people really they will piss you off, and they were very close to pissing me off, because I just was tired of paying for not just albums, but paying for like limited editions and trying to get sulgy versions of limited editions only for them to turn out this crap. And so yeah, I'm very pleased with Psycho. I'm pleased with the songs that were added for the repackage. I think that they were all quality content, and I'm really, really glad that thing turned out the way it did. Not necessarily unpopular opinion, but maybe not an opinion shared by a lot of people. Mamamoo should disband. This is not me trying to be mean to Mamamoo. Don't take this that way. Mamamoo actually is more popular now than they've ever been. Mamamoo has really, really done that thing. I liked Mamamoo when they first came out. I thought that they were a very interesting group. They were singing, which a lot of groups weren't singing, and I appreciated that about them. I thought they were quirky, and it was nice to see them kind of be quirky. And then they did the Orange album, can't remember the name of it, and I was like, I'm starting to fall off of Mamamoo. And they kept releasing albums, and there would be like good title tracks, but I have to say, Mamamoo's B-sides are a little bit boring, right? Well, now at this point, we've had solos from every single member of Mamamoo, and it has completely convinced me that it is time for Mamamoo to break up. Let me fill you in on why I feel this way. I feel like Mamamoo as solos have been doing very, very well, almost better than what they have done as a group. I feel like the girls of Mamamoo aren't nearly on the same page with each other as to what the group should be doing. And I just feel like they've wrung as much material out of this foursome as they can, and you should just retire the name and the group while the iron is hot, because it's tiresome to see them look like they hate being Mamamoo. Like when you look at Mamamoo, I feel like they fucking hate being Mamamoo, except for Wien and Hwasa, because I mean they live together. They're fucking. It is what it is. That's just alleged. That's just me being. That's me being messy. No truth. No truth to the rumors at all. But yeah, I just feel like they're tired of doing it. It's let's just call it a wrap. Let's give the public their last Mamamoo album, and let's do solo stuff, and every once in a while collaborate on a special stage, or like once a year for the anniversary release an anniversary song for the fans. But let's just call Mamamoo a day. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. I'm not mad at Mamamoo. I don't think that Mamamoo is a bad group in that way. They just feel, as of late, like they are uninspired by group activities. Man, I'm on a roll with these unpopular opinions. Woo! I'm lighting it up here. I think that one got a lot of people right in their cocoa. But yeah, Mamamoo, you're fantastic, but I think y'all should call it a day. I would be fine with that. This is probably the most high key unpopular opinion that I'm ever gonna give, and there's gonna be a lot of people that are probably gonna want to turn this off after I give this unpopular opinion. But this is the way I felt 2 years ago, and it's kind of the way I feel now still. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound extremely disrespectful and just like bad, because I have no disrespectful intent at all, because I'm about to talk about my faves again. I would really like for SHINee to recruit a person to fill in for Jongin when they're on the road. Again, I know people are gonna be mad at me, so that's why I need to say this. I don't want to only hear four voices. I am really happy that SHINee is still promoting. I'm glad to hear their voices. I still want more SHINee projects. When SHINee is traveling, when they're touring, I would really like for them to have one more person on stage with them. That person can be dressed in all black, wearing a baklava. I don't care. I just would like to see 5 bodies in the choreography. It really, it looks nicer to me, maybe. I would like to see them have somebody kind of filling in to help with the singing. Not that the others can't sing. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it just, I know you can't leave dead air on tour. You can't. I would love to see like a fill-in person to help. I have an idea for this too. I could see like certain members of NCT that don't necessarily get to promote very often and would like to like do a little traveling, make a little extra money, could fill in as subs for SHINee whenever they're doing stuff, and maybe NCT has hit a down moment. Or if maybe there's like some really talented trainees at SM who would like to, go on tour with SHINee until their group debuts, that would be lovely as well. You could feature different singers on different tour stops. But I personally would like to see 5 people on stage. And this is, again, this is an unpopular opinion. This is not, no one else in my entire sphere of opinions has said the same thing. I've not heard anyone say this. I'm literally the only person that I've heard say this. But I just, I want to see 5 people, and I want to hear 5 voices. I missed it on Story of Light, but Story of Light was a different situation because I feel like I missed it on Story of Light because I was still getting over everything. I mean, it hadn't even been a full year at that point. But now I'm thinking about the future for real. Like I'm thinking about like after Taemin gets out the military even, I would like to see 5 people on stage. But I think that it's not going to happen because not every shawl is in the same place. Not every shawl is in the same place. And that's why it can't be a permanent 5th member. It has to be a rotating 5th member. Let me be clear about that. It can't be the one guy who is now the new Junghyun. That absolutely cannot happen. It has to be a rotating 5th member for stage performances. But not every Shawwal is at the same place when it comes to how they feel about what's going on with Jonghyun. Like there are some Shawwals that are like, I can't even speak his name. It chokes me up. I've never listened to Poet Artist. I can't look at his pictures. I have to pretend like he doesn't exist because the minute I think about his existence, it breaks me down. Then you have other Shawwals who are like, anytime I think about Jonghyun, I think about his sexy ass abs because Jonghyun was my bias. Like everyone is at a different stage with the way they feel about things. So that's why this is a really unpopular opinion because there is a certain contingent of Shawwal culture that has enshrined Jonghyun to the point where like no one wants to do anything that could be perceived as in any way disrespectful, and they want to always keep his spot intact. But SHINee is still an active group. They're still an active group. They have more songs in their catalog with Jonghyun than they have without Jonghyun. They've been performing their choreography the way that they've performed it for over a decade now. I don't see where it's disrespectful to Jonghyun's memory to bring in a rotating 5th member. I don't see that as being disrespectful. I see it as number one, providing a break in performance because, as you all know, whenever one member of the band is not singing, the other members of the band are actually catching a freaking breath. So this allows them to kind of catch their breath a little bit more, takes a little bit of the pressure off them when it comes to the touring schedule, and it also helps people like get used to a new face. Not necessarily a new face that will be permanently connected with the group, but maybe somebody like, oh, this is a trainee. I'll be looking out for them because they seem like they're really talented. But yeah, there are people who are going to hate because they're jerks, and it is what it is. But I think having a rotating 5th member, and again, explaining it to the public, the choreography is for 5 for all of our old material. The songs are structured for 5 for all of our old material. We want to continue giving the same performances to the public, and we feel like this is the best way to do so, but also take the pressure off of us. I'd like to see it. And again, like I said, I think you could do it through trainees, guest appearances. There's so many freaking SHINee fanboys out in the world. So, like, I'm sure one of them would be more than willing to spend a night pretending to be a member of SHINee. I am certain that there is at least one SHINee fanboy. I was like, I would be willing, I volunteer, I will be tribute, and put them out there. I think if we're picking trainees from SM who are not discovered yet or like haven't been released to the public and they have the vocal skills to sing certain parts, I'd like to see it. But even more so than that, like I would be fine with a completely silent 5th person on the stage and they could just play Jonghyun's voice while that person is dancing. I would actually be okay with that. Like, I'd be okay with the rest of SHINee kind of being quiet during those moments and having Jonghyun's voice playing over the intercom system while this other person dances. But yeah, I think rotating is the best option. I don't want a permanent fill-in for Jonghyun. Like, even me in my stage of acceptance, I can't handle that. Like, I would not be cool with that. I wouldn't be hateful, but I just would be like, this ain't right, SM. This ain't it. But I wouldn't mind, like I said, for touring purposes, having a fifth person on the stage with the choreography and everything else. Man, that was my most unpopular opinion. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to recover from that one, guys. Also, Jay, just to say that unpopular opinion. Well, this is not an unpopular. This is actually probably the most popular opinion I'm going to say this evening. I don't think anyone in K-pop has ever sounded like Jonghyun, and I don't think anybody ever will, at least for another 10 years. And so, with that being said, SHINee is one of the most special K-pop groups of all time because they had one of the most unique vocalists to ever grace the face of the earth. There is an unpopular opinion amongst Shawwals. I don't know why it always gets to this place. I really feel like being a Shawwal is just the worst. Because, like, it always devolves into, like, arguments about Jonghyun, and I hate that sometimes. So, there, like I was saying about, like, enshrining Jonghyun, there are certain people who act like just talking about Jonghyun is off limits and his name should never be mentioned, and we should all live our lives just thinking about nothing but his sainthood. And I'm not here to challenge those people, but there is this overwhelming contingent of people who are like, no one should ever reference Jonghyun for anything. Keep his name out your mouth. Don't talk about him unless you were a fan before he died. And I think that discounts a really real emotion about the way that people discover music. So, I grew up in the mid 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. Here I am. Well, I didn't grow up in these years, but obviously, like, this is my lifespan. I remember being in middle school and sitting on the floor of my bedroom and crying, listening to Janis Joplin sing Bobby McGee. And Janis Joplin died in the either late 60s, early 70s, around that time period, well before I was even a sperm in my dad's nut. And I never got a chance to know her as a live act. I never had a chance to see her perform live, like, just nothing. Like, her lifespan and my lifespan were completely divorced by a couple of decades, right? But I still remember listening to her and thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe that somebody actually did this, like, that this music came from somebody. And I was obsessed. And I remember the first time I watched the movie The Rose with Bette Midler, and it was like supposed to be a pseudo Janis Joplin biography, but not really. And, like, again, crying, thinking about, like, this woman has so much potential, and it just all went away because she didn't have the self-confidence to stay away from the drugs, and just really being hurt about it. And I'm sure there are people who were in their teens, 20s, whatever, who experienced Janis Joplin who might be like, you're an idiot for crying over this lady. But her music touched me. Her music touched me in a really deep way. And I could not feel emotions knowing how she died. I could not feel those emotions. So when people who became fans after December 17th talk about Jonghyun and talk about their sadness and how it affects them and how they mourn for his life, I'm not mad at that. Like, there's a lot of Shawwals, like I said, legacy Shawwals is what I'll call them, who feel like they're the only people who are allowed to own the pain associated with losing him. That's not true. No matter where you found him in your life, the point is you found him. And the point is that you felt something. And the point is that you're sad because a human being lost their life to a tragic set of circumstances. And it's okay to feel sad that tragedy affected this person whose art you admired. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think there's even another layer of grief that those people cling on to that I will never experience, because their grief is, I missed so much time. I could have discovered this person. I had the opportunity, but I just didn't find out in time. And that's even harder to deal with. Like, I was lucky in that, like, she died before I was born, and so I never had an opportunity to stand her while she was here. But I kind of felt that way when Mac Miller died. So when Mac Miller died, I knew of him because I was a fan of Ariana Grande, and he did The Way with Ariana Grande, and like his name had come up in conversation. But I had never been a Mac Miller fan. Like, I didn't feel that way about him. But I do remember, like, before he died, watching his Tiny Desk concert on NPR and thinking, oh, this is a groove, this is a jam. And then as I was coming back from dropping my daughter off for her summer with her dad, I was listening to Swimming by Mac Miller, and I wanted to pull over and just bawl. I really did, because he was so incredibly sad. Like, the music was good, the production was really good. I listened to the Divine Feminine, that was also a really good one too. But the production was really good on the album. He sounded well. It was very intricate and very well written rap, and it definitely had an emotional connection. But there were so many times on that project where he was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it out of this. And it was devastating. And it made me even sadder to listen to it at the point that I had listened to it, because I'm like, this is somebody I could have been listening to all along. This is somebody that, if I had a chance to see them and go to their concert or whatever else, that would have been amazing. But I didn't discover them until this point. And so I almost feel like I'm not allowed to be sad about what happened to them, because I didn't care when they were here. So what right do I have to care about him now? And to the point of people saying, oh, well, if you only found Jonghyun because of his death, you're not allowed to be sad. Again, I only really took the time to listen to Mac Miller's music because he died. And that's not me trying to be shady or anything else. Like, when he passed away, so many people talked about how important his music was and how well written his music was. And they talked about him in a way after his death that I didn't recall people talking about him during his life, to be quite honest with you. And it made me want to hear the music. And then hearing the music, being like, oh my gosh, this was here the whole time. And so I don't think it's fair to be judgmental and be shitty about people finding Jonghyun because of his death or after his death, and then all of a sudden being like, oh, he was a genius and everything else, because we find out about things when we find out about things. And with Jonghyun, at the end of the day, while he is more than the worst day of his life, it is still going to be something that will always be identified with his legacy. There's absolutely no way to divorce his legacy from the worst day of his life. But due to that day, it has led some people to get to know him, get to know his artistry, get to know who he was. And I don't think it's fair for us to treat those fans like they aren't as deserving of grief as we are. I don't agree with that at all. I get that people are like, there's people who are into grief porn who use him for that reason, or they bring him up to an argument, or they bring him up to talk about mental health in Korea and the like and the sort. I get that. That shit's ugly. We're not condoning that. But again, I don't think it's wrong for somebody to be empathetic about a life that was lost far too soon. I don't think it's wrong for people to be empathetic about the fact that, this is somebody who was very transparent in his lyrics about what his struggle was, and it still didn't resolve in a positive way. So I just feel like I'm not mad at people who find him later. I'm not mad at people who are sad about what they found after they found him. I'm not upset at people who are still hurting about everything. And I think that it's not fair for us to assume that everyone else ought to be on the same spectrum in the process that we are. Because we're all in it in a different way. And that's the reason why I can't be mad about that. I can't be mad about that, because again, everybody is in a different place. There are Shawwals right now who were fans of SHINee for years before Jonghyun passed away. And those people are still grieving. Those people are still using sad emojis. Those people still can't listen to Poet Artist. Those people still can't say his name or visit certain songs in the SHINee catalog because it's too painful. There are people who were fans of SHINee for years, and then when December 17th came, they stopped listening to K-pop, full stop, because it was far too much for them, and they still haven't gone back to listening to even the new music that SHINee has done because they just can't process it. And what kind of asshole would I be to say that those people aren't allowed to feel that way, that you're not allowed to feel what you feel? Now again, like I said, there are people who are just here for grief porn, for tragedy porn, and every time they see Jonghyun's name, it's like sad emoji, RIP. There are those people, absolutely. But again, like I said, there's people who are just in a different place with their grief, and they're not there yet. And I can't make myself be mad at them for not being where I'm at. I can't. In my heart, I can't be mad at them for not being where I'm at, because we're all kind of following our own trails and we're all riding our own horses. And I don't know what their life is like for them to be feeling the way that they feel, for me to tell them that they're not justified in feeling the way they feel, or they're not allowed to feel the way that they feel. I'm not going to censor myself for those people. That's not going to happen. Like, I'm going to continue to be joyous and happy, and I'm still going to love what I love and talk about what I talk about, and I'm still going to react the way I react. I'm not going to stop my show for other people's grief process, because their grief process really ain't got shit to do with me as an individual. But I'm just not, I from this point forward, I'm not going to fight that fight anymore. I'm no longer going to be the person saying you're not allowed to pretend to be sad about this, that, the other. Because who am I to say they're pretending? Who am I to say they're pretending? There is a podcast that I listen to called The SHINee Print. And there is a woman on the SHINee Print who found SHINee in the last year. 12 months, y'all. The last year. And she's a huge Shawwal now. Like, she knows fun, obscure facts, and she's going back and watching all the shows, and she's listened to all the music, and she's watched all the videos, and she's watching the variety appearances, and she's watching the stages, and she's a huge fan. And if she has a tough moment because she's thinking about how she didn't find this in time, or maybe she's just having a moment where like the music really hits her heart because she can feel the emotion, I'm not gonna be like, well, you didn't know them, so you're really not allowed to feel that way. I'm not gonna be that guy. I'm not gonna be that guy. Because again, who am I to say that? Who am I to say that? That's not me. That's just not me, y'all. So, unpopular opinion. Absolutely. There's a lot of people who don't want to have anything to do with that. That you gotta be on one side or the other. And I think it's even worse for me as a Shawwal having to be in the midst of these kind of arguments, because I feel like we're the only people doing this. Like, straight up. I feel like fans of FX aren't having to deal with this in the same flood that we are. I feel like Kara fans, Camellias, aren't dealing with it the same way we are. Like, I feel like Shawwals, we are constantly fighting each other about where we are emotionally. And it is, I get not wanting to deal with people who are blatantly disrespectful. That I totally, absolutely get. But we're fighting with each other about whether or not you're allowed to be sad. And that to me seems like a nonsense conversation to have. Whereas I just don't feel like you're getting that same energy from the FX fan base and the Kata fan base. I could be wrong though, because those aren't my chosen fandoms, so I can't say what's going on there. But I also on the side note, this is another unpopular opinion. I feel like the reason why people talk about Jonghyun so much, and why of the three he is the more widely discussed figure, is because he is a man. Because I can't say it's because SHINee was the more popular group. Um, because Kara was massive. Like, there are people who are coming into K-pop now that have no idea how game-changing Kara was. Like, Kara really did that. Like, they blew the doors down on the Japanese market. They have some of the most memorable choreographies in all of K-pop. There was a while where they couldn't release a bad single even if they tried. Like, Kara was massive. And that's the reason why I feel like for people to kind of focus on Jonghyun and not focus on Guhara, it to me feels very much like it's gender biased. It's not about popularity, because again, Guhara was super popular. Not only that, but I feel like with Guhara, there's so many more layers that need discussion. And maybe that's the reason why people don't want to focus on it like that, because there are so many people, so many more people who we could attempt to assign blame for what happened to Guhara. But like, we're talking about what it's like to be in a domestic violence situation, what it's like to be in a situation where you're in a romantic partnership and you're being gaslit consistently, what it's like to be constantly bullied by the internet, what it's like to have an unsupportive record label, what it's like to deal with leftover grief. There's so many layers to what's going on with Guhara, and no one really talks about the circumstances surrounding her passing away. They almost act like she died of natural causes, oddly enough. Like, this is just the natural outcome of these kinds of things. Whereas with Jung, it's like, it is squarely because of the record industry. If it wasn't for K-pop, this would have never happened to him. And it's like, no, there's other stuff as well. Much like Guhara, an absent parent, not saying that his mother was very much there, but with his dad, not as much in the picture. But Guhara had an absent mother. She was routinely mocked for going through the troubles of her life. People mocked her the way she looked. They mocked her relationships. They mocked her music. Like, they just, I can't even begin to understand the life she lived. I can't even begin to understand the life she lived and how she managed to make it for as long as she did, even though I really sincerely wish she had made it longer. But with Jonghyun, it's easy for people to wrap it up in a bow and be like, this is what happened to Jonghyun. It's K-pop's fault. Whereas Guhara, there's so many other populations who'd be like, you know what? Maybe I really need to be looking in the mirror on this. And they don't want to do that. So he gets brought up because people feel like there's a clean distinction here. So Jonathan's got a lot to say, so I'm going to read a couple of his things. He says, When I was in Korea, I joined a discussion on cyberbullying, and it goes deeper than gender. Korea has the number one e-footprint in the world. 90% of the population use the internet. Guhada and Sully were severely cyberbullied. We know that. And actually, the discussion of Sully and Guhada is bigger in Korea because of the discussion of cyberbullying. You can be charged and fined for it there now because it's such a big problem. So I don't think it's fair to compare. I do think it's fair to compare, Jonathan. I will tell you why I think it's fair to compare. I think it is fair to compare because you're saying that it's more discussed in Korea. Well, unfortunately, I don't live in Korea. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, I feel like unfortunately because COVID is being severely mismanaged where I'm at. But unfortunately, I don't live in Korea. I'm talking about my viewpoints as an international fan because this is the life I'm currently living. And in the life I'm currently living, people are really not talking about them the same way they're talking about Chonghyun. Really, they're not. So, I mean, if anyone else here is an international fan and can speak otherwise, please let me know because very much my search engines and my trending page and all the things that I observed are very much catered to me via the algorithms. So I could just be getting in my own echo chamber, but I really do feel like people really aren't talking about them like that in international circles. Also, their deaths are a lot more recent as well. So that's part of it. And then again, with Sully, that situation was even a lot more eerie because of the show she was on, which is a terrible fucking idea for a show. Um, I mean, to do a show where people have to read insults about themselves and confront every negative thing that anyone's ever had to say about them, it is like, why would you do that to anybody? Like, even a person with a really strong mental health background, that would still be depression inducing, I think. Like, I mean, if I had to come on here and do live streams where I talked about today, someone said that Shallow 360 is a massive bitch. Today, someone said that Shallow 360 smells like fresh cut onions. If I had to do that weekly around these parts, trust me, that wouldn't last for very long. Because who wants to live that life? It's not right. And I don't know what fucking genius at the TV station said this would be great. This is a perfect show medium because there's nothing better than watching somebody humble themselves from a position of power. Like, so yeah, that her involvement in that show was not the best thing. Not the best thing. It's not the best thing for anybody, honestly, but it wasn't the best thing for her. No, I don't know who XRO is, so I won't be talking about that. Sorry, Sophia. Wish I could. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit because when I was talking about my other stuff, Jonathan left a lot of messages too, and I didn't have a chance because I was thinking about my own stuff. So Jonathan says, well, I'll start with Sulsu says YouTube comments on his past videos or any shiny content 0 out of 10 would not recommend scrolling through. It can be a little dour in the comments. Jay says, I became a fan after December 17th, so I'm always careful about talking about shiny, but at the end of the day, I'm a fan. Well, good to hear. Jonathan says, where it becomes a problem is where they just make out Jonghyun's life to be a tragedy and that his death was the only thing that defines him, and that's not all Jonghyun was, I guess. Agreed. You can definitely become a fan after 2017, but not just because he died, but because the positivity and brought to people to his music and art. That I don't agree with. You can become a fan just because he died. Like I mentioned with me learning about Mac Miller, sometimes the awareness of that person is just because they died. Granted, I don't think that you should be a fan of like death. Like I only stand dead celebrities. That's pretty fucking morbid. Would not recommend. But saying like I'm a fan because he died, you can learn about the positivity after getting past the tragedy. So I don't think it's fair to be like if somebody says I only found out about Jonghyun because he passed away, I don't feel like you would be right to say like, well, then you can't be a fan because you haven't earned the right. Um, it's not just about finding Jonghyun about his death, but not making his death the only thing that defines him. I think once people listen to the music, that won't become the only thing. But I think it is a big part of the conversation because it is the last part of the conversation in many ways. And isn't sad that people speak differently about people after they die. That seems unfortunate because anything we need to take from Jonghyun's passing is that we should appreciate the K-pop. Okay, that's human nature. It is very human nature to talk differently about people after they die. And that's not even just about celebrities. That is literally about people that we know. That's grandparents, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, parents. You talk differently about people after they die because life a lot of times is put in sharp relief upon death. You know, the way I talked about my stepfather changed very much after he died than the way it was when he was alive. Starting with the word was. Like, literally, there is he is and he was. Death defines those things. So talking about somebody differently because they died, that's a natural part of being a human being. And there are things that my stepfather did that I was actively angry about at the time that he passed away. After he passed away, I was able to start letting those things go, and I don't talk about them with the same anger I had during his lifetime. So I think it's not fair to say, well, people need to quit talking about him differently because he passed away. No, that's human nature to talk about people differently after they pass away. Because at the same time, we don't want him to be defined by the tragedy of his last moments. At the other hand of it, we didn't revere him like a saint when he was alive. So to say that people have to revere him as a saint now that he's passed on is unfair as well. We have now and give their lives to entertain us. I can't even tell you the amount of times I see every sad emoji react every time he's mentioned. I can see that. How can his legacy continue if new fans are not allowed to feel something for him? My best friend would always cry in Banchan when his MV would come on. She can't even listen to Poet Arts. I've heard that before. I think new fans like me just need to realize that the context put out before his death shouldn't be speculated to relate to his death, i.e. the story OP. Now that I can say I have a legitimate problem with about the way that people go back to Story Op 2 specifically and be like, this was the cry for help. Jonghyun was a songwriter. And songwriters draw from a lot of different resources to come up with songs. It's not just about their life. It could be about the life of people around them. It could be about emotions they felt at various times that they're no longer in anymore, but they maybe wanted to commemorate the moment. And I don't think it's fair to be like, well, because his life ended, every single negative thing he ever said in a song lyric is about him crying for help. That shit's biased. I don't like that. We can be sad, but we shouldn't stop talking about Jonghyun and his contributions to the K-pop community. I don't think anybody is. I really don't. When I was in Korea, I went, okay, so now that gets me caught up. Good. So I wanted to make sure. I'm not trying to like skip over anybody's opinions, but I do like to address them because, you know, opinions can be different from mine. And I like to be able to give my counter, especially because, you know, on a purely dictatorial way, this is my channel, so I'm allowed to do those things. But yeah, I don't think that anybody's diminishing his contribution to K-pop. More than anything, I feel like his contribution to K-pop will be magnified through the last few years, because in the same way that people revere other young celebrities who pass away early, I think they're going to look back at him as being an aesthetic, being a style, being a reference point. And like I said, in another 10 to 15 years, you're going to see a lot of people who look like Jonghyun and sound like Jonghyun and are not mocking, but mimicking his style. Like, I really feel like come the future, you're going to see a lot of young people saying, like, I grew up on his music. I've always idolized him. My mother played him in the house all the time. And growing up, I always tried to sing like him. And he was a major influence on my style. I absolutely see that happening. Without a doubt. It's going to happen. It's going to happen because it's human nature for that to happen. You know, so I clearly see that being in the cards when it comes to his legacy in K-pop. It does not end today. It does not end today. It doesn't end 2 years ago. It is well into the future. It is an echoing effect. It'll continue to reverberate as time goes on. I know that for a fact. I have no doubt. I guess I should finish off. It's now been over an hour, and I need to give like one final unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. There are certain parts of K-pop YouTube that I could really throw away and be okay with. That's probably not an unpopular opinion, but like there are certain parts of K-pop YouTube that I could live my entire life without and never need it and be okily dokily. I could probably live the rest of my life without K-pop reaction channels anymore. And that's me talking about even my personal phase. I could probably live my life without K-pop reaction channels. Full stop. And that has nothing to do with me thinking that they're lousy or anything else, but there's a couple of things that go on when it comes to K-pop reaction channels that are very similar to the people who watch me. Like they're actually almost identical in a lot of ways, so I'm probably shitting on myself here. When people do reaction videos, especially the really popular ones, say, you guys have asked me to review this video and I'm going to review it now. We're going to watch such and such thing. And they watch it and they're like, ooh, oh, look at that. Oh man, you snapped. Like all that stuff. Part of the reason why the really popular K-pop reaction channels get requests to do certain reactions is because people are very invested in knowing what other people think about their favorite things. They really are. Like, and I'm not even gonna lie, I'm the exact same way. Like, when me and Mason are talking, I'm like, girl, what'd you think about this? Boy, what'd you think about that? Like, back and forth. That's our conversation. Is us exchanging opinions. And it's a big part of human nature. It literally is the basis for the term conversation. In order to have a conversation, you must converse. How do we converse? It is by sharing of the opinions. And people get so caught up in making sure that somebody else has an opinion about something and they want to hear you say it and they need to know if you feel the same way that they feel. So it's a buy-in effect. It's really like, I like you, you say nice things, I hope you say nice things about the thing that I like. And that is what gets fed off of. And it's really bizarre because I feel like my channel is almost the exact opposite. I hate this thing. I know that she's good about reading somebody the house down. I'm going to ask her if she'll do that to this thing that I dislike. Because, like, let's be honest here. At this point in the game, if you're not used to hearing me give unfavorable critique about stuff, then you haven't known me very long. But if you have known me for a really long time, then you know I'm going to be harsh, and some of you are here for that buy-in. Like, some of you really are here like, okay, she listened to the new Somi performance, she's gonna have an opinion about that. I can't wait to see if she rips that bitch apart the way that I'm ripping it apart. And sometimes I think I might surprise y'all. Some of y'all are like, oh really, you like that? Because you're expecting me to be negative. Sorry if I can't always live up to your expectations. But yeah, I could do without that particular part of K-pop YouTube because I feel like it creates another layer of falsehood that we just don't need in the K-pop community at this time. It creates a series of clout chasing. It creates a lot of people are here for the views, gone tomorrow. And it really actually kind of shuts off the valve on real conversations. So Jerry KML, I've liked JRE from Jerry KML for a really long time. Not only do I like him, like in terms of having watched his content for a really long time, I even once bought him a shiny cassette. Like I really did. It's so funny. You can ask Xiaoal5 because she actually was like on his Instagram or something when he unboxed it. So it's really, really funny. But in recent years, he's quit kind of taking as many requests for reviewing things, and the stuff that's on his main channel now that's like not on his Twitch channel, he really only is reviewing stuff he likes. And that's one way to not have to address the idea of having negative critiques, is being like, I'm only going to talk about things I like, which means I'm not taking requests from you guys because I'm only going to talk about the things that I like. That totally, you know what? You have mastered the system, sir. But there are other people that they know that people are looking for the buy-in, that they're watching them to get the buy-in. And because they're watching them to get the buy-in, they're like, hey friend, I saw that you reviewed one video from this group positively. Can you please listen to their entire discography and react to that positively as well, because we like the same thing? And again, clout chasing. It gets to where reactors only want to react to the newest stuff. They only want to react to the most popular groups. They only have positive things to say, even if they don't even really like the genre of music or anything having to do with the music. And it's fucking clout chasing, and that's how you have Briss Life. And then also there's like really fucking negative people that get involved with it. So I could do without that community completely, or that part of the community. I would rather see reactions from people who have nothing to lose and that the audience doesn't really expect anything from them other than their honest opinion. Like, form of therapy, honestly, as much as I don't subscribe to the channel anymore because it would clog up my feed with all the live streams, I really did respect the fact that they kept a pretty varied opinion about things. Same thing with React to the K, because there were so many different people that weren't as invested with getting clout points about K-pop, they would all have very different opinions about the music. So that's fun to see. But some of the other ones, like literally like I make my family react to BTS for the first time. I make my family watch an EXO video for the first time. That kind of stuff, again, clearly, transparently a clout chase move. And I can live without that. Same thing with like the K-pop crackhead videos. First of all, we have got to, as a society, stop using the word crackhead. Straight up. Maybe the people watching here don't have a good frame of reference for the term crackhead, but as the child of a former crackhead, I'm tired of seeing people call shit crackhead behavior, crackhead move, crackhead, whatever the fuck. Because let me tell you something. There's nothing funny about your father not recognizing you when he sees you because he is high on crack. There's nothing entertaining about a parent who is so far down the drug spectrum that they can no longer actively be your parent anymore. It's a personal thing for me because, like I said, my father was a crackhead and his addiction ended up ruining his life and ending his life prematurely. He got off crack, thank God, about 6 months before he passed away, but due to all the damage he had done to his immune system, he contracted pneumonia and he died in my grandmother's home. And so the phrase crackhead to me will never be funny. It will never be a conversation that I want to have with somebody in jest, because again, I know what that meant for me in my life. I know what crack took away from me in my life, and I know what people called my dad in a slanderous way, in a demeaning way, based on an addiction that he had no control over and that he struggled with actively, that took everything away from him. So I don't want to see crackhead edits or crackhead this, that, and the other, because that shit is mad disrespectful. And until you've had to live with losing somebody to an addiction in that way, you can kindly shut the fuck up. Just like I don't think anybody who has a family member dealing with a meth addiction wants to hear meth head. How come we don't have 1,000 videos on the internet talk about meth head edits? Because really and truly, the reason why y'all call it crackhead edits is because of racism, because crackhead behavior has been firmly and inextricably linked to black people, poor black people in poor communities, which FYI, the Reagan administration during the 80s allowed cocaine to flood the black communities, and he was the prime driving force behind the crack epidemic in black communities. So yeah, you can get the fuck out of here with that racist ass, insensitive ass crackhead word. I don't want to hear it. Do not bring it up to me. Let that shit go. Go somewhere with that. I know too many people whose lives have been affected by crack for that to ever be a fucking joke to us. But I digress. But I could absolutely do without crackhead edits. The unhelpful guide thing, what's the point? I've tried to watch a few unhelpful guides, and it's these really random edits a lot of the time, and they don't really help with a lot of stuff. So I can live without a few of those. But like, there's some edit videos that are funny. So I'm not saying get rid of all edit videos. Like, some of them are very funny and their intentions are very well spelled out. Like, my favorite group as characters from the movie Cats. Like, that shit, that's funny. Like, I saw one where it was like, I forget who it was. I think it might have been BTS as BuzzFeed Unsolved, something like that. That shit was funny. That shit was really funny. I enjoyed that. But some of it is not needed. Another thing that I think I wouldn't mind seeing an end to, only because in order for this to end, it means that K-pop companies have to do something very different. I would be willing to get rid of lyrics videos. Let me explain that. A lot of us really rely on lyrics videos. We really do. Like, I'm a person who relies on lyrics videos. I think the rest of y'all really enjoy lyrics videos. They are very helpful in trying to determine if that song you're body rolling to is actually about sex or if it's about somebody's dog who passed away. So yeah, lyrics videos are extremely important. However, I would love to see K-pop companies put these lyrics videos out of business by doing their own. Like, okay, if you don't know this already, SM now has all of the songs from all of their albums on YouTube, because YouTube has that whole YouTube music thing. So like, if you want to listen to the latest Red Velvet album, SM has an official channel that puts all the tracks in their full length on that channel, and you can listen to it. And it shows the album artwork too. But they don't have the lyrics on there. And so somebody else is collecting coin because they're taking the time to do the translations. I think it would be awesome if we didn't have lyrics videos anymore, because the company was spending the money to provide subtitles and lyrics for their artist music. Does anybody else feel like that'd be a win for all of us? We constantly talk about the fact that, like, you get concert DVDs that don't have English subs, or you get other things that don't have translations. What if every K-pop company just said, you know what, we're going to not let anybody else make money off of our product. Instead, we will pay people to do the translations and put the translations up. Or if they were to make it to where, like, if somebody is particularly good at making fan translations, they kick them a little cash to volunteer their translations for music. That might be cool. That might be fun. That might be something that's, a way to interact with fans that we could really appreciate. So I would go with that. So that would be really lovely. I think that'd be great. Also, the other part of the K-pop community I could really do without, and this is not an unpopular opinion at all, I think everybody and their grandmother could agree with this. Quit fucking telling me to stream everything. Quit it. Just quit it. Just stop. Just stop. I don't need your peer pressure. I don't need you to make me feel like I'm a lesser human being because I don't want to stream some shit. If I like something, I'm going to stream it. Like, just straight up. If I like something, I'm going to listen to it over and over organically without you telling me I need to stream it. If I love something, years later, I'm still going to be listening to it. I don't want to be told that we have until Friday to get to 2 billion views. I don't want that. Leave me the hell alone. I work for a living. I don't have time to set the alarms on all of my different devices to make sure that I've got a playlist set up so that I'm watching this video 15,000 times. I don't want it. I don't want it. And as an old lady K-pop fan, I don't have to do that stuff, but it trips me out how younger fans are always like, you call yourselves a fan, but you didn't even stream the latest comeback. Or they'll be like, around here, we don't put pedestals on who does what for the fandom, but the least you can do is stream. Like, get out of here. Get the whole fuck out of here. First of all, you don't know me. You don't know me. You don't know my life. So that's number one. Number two, y'all don't even say stream this shit because it's good. It's stream this because we're trying to win XYZ awards. Awards are meaningless if they're not backed up by actual public approval. If you win a streaming award because the fandoms are the only ones who are pushing up the numbers, that's no indication that your group is super popular with the public. It means that you have some super fans out there that are pushing it up. What really catches the eye of the public is when some shit comes out of nowhere and everybody's just like, this is good, and they get on. But that's not how this shit happens. That's not how this shit happens anymore. It's like, okay, so Group X is coming out with a comeback in 2 weeks. So what we need you to do is we need you to follow the following instructions for streaming off of Naver, Melon, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and on Google Play. After you're doing that, just remember that a percentage of their win points comes from streaming, a percentage comes from buying the actual song, a percentage comes from the YouTube views, and a percentage comes from how many albums are sold. So make sure you buy at least 5 copies of the album. Make sure you watch the video at least 20,000 times between here and Friday. Also, make sure that you have all of your phones and other devices streaming the music nonstop from the different streaming apps. Thank you so much, guys. Get out of here. Get out of here. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Nobody wants to hear that shit. Because then when you do it, it's like, we did it. The public loves Group XYZ. No, they don't. The public don't love you. You guys are fucking racking up the numbers like by almost cheating, to be honest with you. That's the reason why Korea laughs at international fans, because during the daytime in Korea when the rest of us are asleep, there's organic number ones, and then when Korea goes to sleep and us international fans are up, that's when you have the fandom number ones. And it's a real thing. Like, there's like, 3 o'clock in the morning, I wonder which fandom is gonna bring their faves to number one today. So, with that being said, I could absolutely lose that contingent of K-pop all the time because I'm just so sick of it. And also, like, it's actually kind of ruining K-pop, to be honest with you. Because when it comes to how people discover K-pop, and especially, like, in terms of how new groups get seen and heard and everything else, when these fandoms do all these streaming parties and everything to do music show wins, a lot of times the only thing that gets talked about is the music show win, and no one talks about, oh, I was watching X, Y, and Z's music show and something really interesting happened, and I want to know more about this group that didn't necessarily win anything, but they had a really strong presence on the music show. The last time I can remember a music show kicking off a group was K&K, Knockin'. That was the last time I remember a music show benefiting a group who didn't win shit on that particular music show. And I remember them because they had this choreography where they had their little knees up. It was so funny. And it was because they were tall. Like, literally, it wasn't even their performance. People were like, who are those tall guys in the back? So, but yeah, like, it used to be that when you look at, like, second gen and stuff like that, there would be so much variety in like winners and stuff, because a lot of times these wins were based on what the public was actually listening to, and everybody was listening to a lot of different stuff, so you'd have a lot of different winners. Now it's like, okay, well, this week Blackpink is coming back, so no one's gonna win anything except for Blackpink this week, and then next week it's going to be Red Velvet, so nobody's gonna win anything that week except for Red Velvet. And it's like these monopolies, and it really is drowning out the diversity and the variety of K-pop, because we're only focusing our efforts on hitting the number one for this moment right here, right now, so that we can tell people, oh, this comeback was very successful. We got a number one, and we broke streaming records, and we did this, that, the other, and we were so great because we kissed our own asses. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. It makes it to where this shit doesn't mean anything anymore. Not that it ever truly meant anything, because people were probably getting paid behind the scenes, but it means even less now. Also, like, rain is trying to come for everybody this year, so I mean, continue doing the streaming parties if you want, but rain has pretty much said, I'm making 2020 my bitch. I will be the only one having a good 2020. So thank you guys so much for putting up with my hour and a half of actual unpopular opinions. I think that I did a good job of identifying actual unpopular opinions, and then finishing it up with some unpopular opinions that weren't unpopular opinions, because you gotta take it back to the roots of these things. And so my last opinions were not actually unpopular, but I think in the middle of there, I gave you some real hot takes for your ass, especially my hot take about a fifth person on stage with SHINee. That one I think is going to go down in the history books as a super unpopular opinion. But yeah, I think I did my job. I will keep this live stream up just like I've been keeping them up lately. If I don't have copyrighted music, I get to keep a lot of things up. But when I have copyrighted music, it's a mess. It's bad for everybody. So, bear with me on these things, because YouTube is like this. This is the way that YouTube is. Like, literally, I have to be very careful if I play even a snippet of me breathing heavy in the same rhythm pattern as a song, because they will shut down the live stream. They've actually done that to me before. Anybody who watches me on a consistent basis, there have been times where I have been live streaming, I was playing music, and YouTube shut the stream down. Like, just, it's over. No more, nothing to see here, guys. She's getting too wild. So yeah, like, I don't listen to as much music on my live streams as I used to, because YouTube won't let me have fun. YouTube doesn't want me to be great. Fuck them guys. Oh, before I go, my community service moment of the day, please watch D'Angelo Wallace's Shane Dawson video. D'Angelo Wallace is a commentary channel here on the YouTubes, and he has been hitting it out the park as of late. He used to do like exactly 10-minute and 1-second long videos, but he kind of changed up his format. He changed things around, shifted some things over, and now he's doing a lot of long form content. And he did a video about Shane Dawson. I think it came out yesterday. I watched it today though. That is absolutely frightening. Like, it is one of the scariest videos I've watched in a really long time, because for those of you who are new to YouTube, haven't been here for very long, how are you doing? How's it going? YouTube is more diverse than it's ever been. There's so much shit on YouTube, and there's so many different points of view. Whoever you are, there's somebody on this platform that is made for you. But in the beginning of YouTube, it was not as diverse, especially in terms of who held a lot of the power dynamics in YouTube and who were the most popular creators on the platform and the most known creators. And Shane Dawson was allowed to be incredibly unhinged and reckless for entirely too long. And D'Angelo Wallace's video does a really good job of showing exactly how extreme Shane Dawson was on the platform and why YouTube is busy trying to censor me, censor you, and everybody else around here and punish us for how long they let Shane go unchecked on this platform. Like, the stuff. When people talked about Shane doing blackface, they made it seem like people were mad at Shane Dawson for putting the makeup on his face. The makeup isn't the part that's disturbing. The part that's disturbing is wearing the makeup while also pretending to be somebody who is loud, ghetto, offensive, stupid, has no common sense, is almost less than human. Like, that is the issue. Number one. Number two, he talks about Shane and his extremely disturbing behavior with household pets, dogs, cats, the like. The simulating of sex with animals, which, my God, why? Why? How's that ever comedy? What? Why? And then finally, the conversations about young girls that deserve him to get his ass beat routinely on a regular basis. All the time. There are some things that Shane Dawson has said and done with pubescent girls that if he was talking about my child in that way, you would have to tear me off of him. Like, straight up. Like, if he was to talk about my child in that way, talking about her budding breasts or talking about her being sexy or asking her to nurse from a fake teat or any of this stuff, again, you would see me on the news for having nearly beat him to death. And that's not even me being that's not a joke. That's not being funny or anything like that. Like, if he talked about my child the way he talked about and to other people's children, it would be over for him. And the fact that he was allowed to be like that all the way up until like 2015, 2016 even. What the fuck, YouTube? I can't listen to a song on my live stream because it's copyrighted material. I can't talk about COVID because it's a controversial topic. I can't talk about self-harm or mental health awareness because those are trigger words to the algorithm. But that guy can be on the platform doing all the worst things blatantly, unabashedly, and unambiguously. And that's the motherfucker that YouTube's got to protect. Please watch D'Angelo Wallace's video. I don't have the link for it because I don't ever do that on my live streams, but please watch D'Angelo's video. It is very important because when people act like it's no big deal, it wasn't a problem, people are blowing it up to be more than it is, they're just making a big deal out of things. No, you need to watch this. Not only do you need to watch this, but there was one particular moment in the video that was extremely eye-opening to me and really changed my mind on something that I had not really thought about before. And it was the conversation he has while he is sitting at the dining room table with Julian and Jenna Marbles. So a lot of people have said that the reason why Jenna Marbles decided to quit her YouTube channel was because she was getting a lot of flack from people for her continued support of Shane Dawson. And I don't know if that's true or not because I haven't talked to Jenna like that because we're not close. We're not even in each other's universes, honestly. But he's sitting at a table with Julian on one side, Jen on the other, and he is telling them about how so many 12-year-old girls ask him if they can suck his cock and talk about giving blowjobs and feeling his ass and squeezing his nuts and stuff like that. And Shane is laughing and they're laughing and they're sitting at this table while this grown ass man is talking about pubescent girls wanting to have sex with him and do sexual things with him. And this is treated as a joke. And I really like Jenna Marbles' content. I really love Julian's content. But the fact that they sat with a person making that kind of commentary and they didn't have shit to say about that, it really makes you look at them like, are you endorsing this? Or do you just not care because this is your friend and your friends can do anything they want to do? What? And it's an important lesson for those of you who are maybe new to the dynamics of apology politics. A lot of times when people watch an apology video, they take it for what it is, and they take it as the person who is apologizing for whatever else that they're apologizing about. They're like, okay, well, this is it. This is the final word on the topic. It is done and dusted. They've apologized. But there's so much more that goes into an apology video than just the words, I'm sorry, or I shouldn't have done that. There's also the acknowledgement of what you did. And that's been the consistent problem with YouTube apologies across the board, is that people will hone in on one specific instance or fact or conversation and be like, I'm apologizing for this thing that everyone has identified as the one wrong thing that I did. I won't do that again. Instead of apologizing for a consistent pattern of behavior and consistent abuses of the system and people and other things. And also, the thing that Shane should apologize for, that he doesn't apologize at all for, is how his blatant racism, not just performing in blackface, but his blatant racism on the platform for so long informed the opinions and the behavior of the children who were watching him back then. Those people are now your Tana Mojos. Those people are now your Lorrays. Those people are now your James Charles. There are so many young platform creators on YouTube who say they grew up watching Shane Dawson. So when you hear about a Tana Mojo gaslighting the black friends that she has, or you hear about how people feel comfortable using the N-word around the black members of their group of friends because it's cool, remember, those people grew up watching Shane Dawson talk about black people like we are fucking animals. And so this is regular conversation and patterns of thought now, because it has now been ingrained in their minds. They have been groomed to see black people in a certain way. History is not that far removed from the present. The same people who were sicking dogs on black people for the civil rights movement are now congressmen and CEOs, and they're in their 60s and they're making all the money and they're providing the same systems to continue to keep black people down. History is not that long. So, yeah. If you haven't watched it, I recommend it, but trigger warning, bestiality, pedophilia, racism, blackface, awful human being traits. All that is there, but it is riveting watching, because again, YouTube tries to act like they're all about respectability, but there is a seedy underbelly to YouTube that has always been there, and for a while there, they built the platform on that seedy underbelly. So why can't I say COVID? But he can say nigger monkey bitch. So, talk to you guys later. Bye.